Welcome back again to another episode of Politics for the Culture. I'm your host, Senator Dwight Bullard. We're getting into it. You know, we're at this point, as I've mentioned in previous episodes. Peep the pen. You know, the lapel pin is going to tell the story. For me, these set of episodes, I'm rocking my Public Enemy B-Boy in a Target lapel pin because we are fighting the power seriously. And of course, invoking all the energy that we can muster from the ancestors. So I'm rocking my Black Education Voices and Lives Matter shirt because, you know, people don't want to center the importance of Black people, but we're going to do it if other folks won't. Happy to be joined today by friend in real life, now friend of the show, Dr. Tameka Hobbs, manager of the African American Research Library and Cultural Center in Broward County. Just so folks understand that ARLIC was only second to the Schomburg Center at the time that it was created. And of course, we've seen other Black think spaces come online since then, but we want to give credit where credit is due, that ARLIC was one of the first to do it. And really, we want to talk about all the Black things, but all the Black intellectualism, or in this case, anti-intellectualism that is so pervasive right now. The attacks on museums, archives, and libraries, and thought that Dr. Hobbs would have a very, very unique and poignant perspective on this. So, Dr. Hobbs, let's get into it. Why are dismantling libraries and museums a bad thing?
Well, I like that question itself. Like, wow, just to hear it land on the ear. First of all, Senator Bullard, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here. It is definitely a privilege to be on this platform with you. And you know, you are more into politics. You have more experience in politics than I do. But as a historian, and knowing a bit about political structures, if your goal is to create an authoritarian government, you need a docile population that will go along with what you want them to believe. It means that you have to remove your intellectuals. This is something that is very uncommon. We've already seen major attacks on the press in the United States. That is also another pillar and another strategy in this move. And now we see these attacks on education in every form, from K-12, university structure, whether we're talking about the state of Florida specifically or nationally. There is really no surprise now in the handbook and where this is going. And there is a sense of urgency. I know I feel it, given my experience in higher education and now working in public libraries and a research library specifically. Where this is going to lead us is a place that I don't want to be. When I've talked about this to audiences, and I have been every opportunity I get, I'm ringing this bell for people. And what I leave people with is this question: do you want to live in a world without experts? What we are seeing is the attack on expertise. We're seeing an attack on the construction of knowledge. We're seeing the dismissal of people who have learned to know, and how are all of these traditional methods of how we construct and approve research and knowing are going away. And on the other side of that is people being able, authoritarian style leaders being able to project the truth as they wish it, and a populace who doesn't have either the literacy skills or the critical thinking skills to know the difference. That for me is a really frightening prospect.
Yeah. I mean, that is dystopian and very scary. And it pains me to have to play devil's advocate, but for folks that are out there that don't love libraries like I do, or love museums like I do. I'll pose the question, which is, we're surrounded by all these smartphones and all this technology at our fingertips. So people are now questioning the value of spaces that contain this knowledge. What would be your pushback on why those institutions are important?
Sure. I think on just the surface level, I would like to invite anyone who is hearing this to really appreciate your tax dollars at work in the protection of intellectual freedom and the providing of critical resources to community that are represented in your area libraries. When we talk about the programming, when we talk about books and knowledge, when we talk about Wi-Fi, when we talk about all the various programmings for youth, for seniors, and everybody in between, the original co-working space is the library. You can come and get a table, come and get a study room, all at no cost. And when we talk about our library system, like so many things in this country, it has been the envy of the world. People wish they had these types of resources. I talk to people here who have immigrated to the United States, and they rave. They can't believe that all of these resources are available for anyone to come and use. And so I do feel that we need to revisit that. I would say specifically in the Black community, having been here in Broward County for a little while, what I'm seeing is that there may be some erosion in the value proposition in the Black community and our understanding and our relationship with libraries. There are things we have to work a little harder for our Black community libraries to get the word out, to get people to come, but we don't have the same issues in other parts of the county, depending on the demographics. People beat down the doors and burst the seams of the library to get in and take advantage of those resources. There is a real noticeable differential between what we see in various locations, again, based on demographics around the county. One stat that I keep coming back to that's very telling for me, I'm very proud of my staff. Last fall, during the school year, between August and December, they were able to issue over 700 library cards to students in our area through outreach. And we celebrated that. It was wonderful. But that also meant that there were 700 kids within our reach who did not already have library cards. And if you got Dwight, I know we have this in common as an old school library nerd. It was a rite of passage, right? As soon as you start reading enough books, you got your own library card. And so while it was a success for us, it really has stayed with me that we somehow in our community, I don't think that people have the same relationship to the library that they once did. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is something else, which is another layer of this issue, and that is the battle for our attention. You mentioned social media. I have been encouraging everyone to read a book called Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. He was concerned about his own slide into dependency and hyperfocus on social media. And as a social scientist, he began to do some research on that. And what he discovered was quite frightening. First, when you look at the companies themselves and the programmers, because of the profit model, this is how they make their money. They are continually finding ways to get us to, again, tapping into deep psychology, tapping into neurology. They're driving us to spend more time on those devices. That is their profit model. For one of these businesses, their slogan was "Drive them crazy," right? And this is why we have even the endless scroll feature on our social media outlets, just to keep you. The point is to keep you there. But when you understand what this does to our brains and how our brains are being rewired, one of the things conclusions that he comes to, which again has stayed with me and was incredibly chilling, especially in a moment like this, is that our inability to focus and to deep read for extended periods of time to really study an issue is contributing to our inability to organize in the face of oppression. And so when I think about myself and as someone who was not born digital, when I think about kids who were born digital, when I think about the forces that are unseen that are attempting to capture more and more of our time, along with the threats that we just talked about now, right? The dismantling of the institution. Again, like we are in a state of crisis and we don't even realize it. And it's always been the case that when America catches a cold, we catch pneumonia. If it's going to be bad for the country, it bears the potential to be exponentially worse for us as a community. And so having it may not sound like the most radical thing, but I do believe one of the most radical things that we could be doing right now is taking ownership of our education, reading, deep reading, reading to our kids, not just throwing books at them, modeling reading for our kids, creating communities of thinkers and debates, and modeling and practicing critical thinking in this moment, because it's the exact opposite of what many of these forces want us to do.
Well, yeah, kind of in that same vein, we know that unfortunately the current administration issued an executive order naming the Smithsonian, or the Blacksonian, as folks like to call it, but the African American Museum right there in the heart of DC. I've been there multiple times. I believe you have as well. Could you kind of touch on and understand this politics for the culture? We're inherently biased towards the culture, but explaining to folks who may not be of the culture or for the culture why it is wrong-headed to dismantle, dismiss, or disregard Black history in that way. Like, you actually have a physical brick and mortar structure that is hoping to archive much of the Black history that we've accumulated. You work at a place that does this as well, right? Just for the average person, and even for some Black people, why is it important to have a historical safe space for Black knowledge, Black history, you name it?
Absolutely. So many things. I'll start by saying that history isn't everything that happened. History is what we preserve to tell the story. And there has to be intention about the collection and preservation of any particular aspect of history. And of course, we are interested in the preservation of Black history. I cut my teeth at the Black Archives, now the Meek Eaton Black Archives and Museum on the campus of Florida A&M University. I knew then I was really driven into the field because I was outraged. I'd taken a Black history class and was enthralled, but I also knew that there had been decisions made in offices right there in the city of Tallahassee and the government, Department of Education, that excluded the content that I was now getting as a college freshman. And I wanted to do something about it. And I found that the Black Archives offered an alternative because it is an accessible place. You remove the paywall, so to speak. With a museum, anyone can come in if you can pay the price of admission, which is usually nominal, if there is a charge at all, and you can absorb various aspects of Black history and culture that will pique your interest. Most importantly, I know for me, Black history is just so full of inspiration. What our ancestors have had to survive in order for us to be here is a tremendous source of strength and inspiration for me on a daily basis. And I wanted more people to be able to have that. And so when we talk about the field of public history, we are talking about accessibility and making scholarship, making these stories accessible to the public. It is absolutely vital for the culture. And if you understand anything about the way that history has been constructed and taught and valued and discounted, some groups discounted, some groups pushed forward, we have had always, number one, to fight for access to reading and to writing and to telling our story. That's number one. Number two, we've always struggled in this really tragic sense with this fugitivity around trying to keep and hide and preserve our items. And so fast forward to the opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. NAMAC is my acronym for it. Um, it's just a massive undertaking, a vision come to fruition. Finally, stories that have been kept at the margin in this country for 400 years have been brought to the center. And going through that institution, it's hard to leave there without having your perspective changed. Even as someone who has studied this, there was just it was so emotional. It was overwhelming what we saw. So to have now an administration that is attempting to edit, to censor what can be on display, what can be said, how it can be framed, in order to, I just, I don't know. Like we deal in truth. These things actually happen, but you're very concerned. This administration seems to be concerned and misinterpreting that truth as something that is un-American. And it's very, it's overwhelming sometimes the way that you watch the pendulation. We are living through the pendulation of just going backwards to a time where we are going to be back in the margins. They don't want to see us. They don't want to know our history. They don't want to be aware of the things that are there. And so, it's a difficult type of situation to live through. But this is American history. This is history for everyone. We are poorer intellectually and otherwise without it. And so it's really interesting to see. And now, if I flip it a little bit and look at what happened here the last couple of years in the state of Florida, you have another dynamic that's playing out. You have a Republican administration in the state that has attempted to build a Black History Museum for Florida in a process that I found highly questionable, that also still has highly questionable outcomes. Especially when you consider that there are a network of 30 and more African American cultural institutions and museums, the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network, that is around 30 years old, that has not ever received healthy funding. There's never been a real concern about the sustainability of these institutions. But now we expect this administration to create something for us that is, number one, going to tell an accurate story, and number two is going to be sustainable. I found the whole thing distasteful. It was out of practice for the way that any institution is built in terms of feasibility, and making sure that if it is going to be built, there's a proper process, and that we are all invested in making sure that this is a place that's going to be around. So it's hitting all over, and you raised it in the intro. We now see the defunding of the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which is huge, and that IMLS funds significantly the Black institutions, cultural institutions here in the state of Florida, in part because of the network and its founder, Althemise Barnes. They had really come up with a program around technical assistance and exposure that was helping these museums to draw down significant amount of funding to the state. I was just at the Black Archives and Historic Lyric Theater for the unveiling of their, I think it's Unfolding History, their newspaper exhibition that was funded by the IMLS, an institution that is currently under attack, defunded. And so it's sometimes it feels like museum and preservation work is on the margins, but it's one of these things that we do this work quietly, we do this work diligently, so that we can be the living memory of a community and a nation. And to see that being threatened is, not only going to have immediate impact. So many of my friends are losing fellowships, losing grants, losing, support for exhibition curation, losing jobs. So that's real, but you won't miss it until you need it. And so the question goes back, it's a very Woodsonian question, is what are we going to do about it? Where are the institutions that we control where we can continue to do this vital work of preservation and education? But we've got to tap in and pay attention. And there are organizations that are doing that. This past week, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, founded by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, partnered with the African American Policy Forum. They held a rally at the at NAMAC, again, a public demonstration of support for that institution. And so you hope that that does have some positive impact. I know there was some back and forth about whether or not the Woolworths counter from that famous February 1960 protest in Greensboro, North Carolina, that kicked off the student movement, that was being sent back to the state of North Carolina. It was being deaccessioned because J.D. Vance, vice president, who's overseeing this investigation into the MAC, had ordered it. Now, we know that that doesn't seem to be the case, but I think it is certainly probable at some point in the future that we will see similar sorts of things actually being carried out by this administration.
Yeah. I mean, a lot to keep an eye on for us, no doubt. But let me, and as I pivot, we can discern whether or not this is a good thing, great thing, or just a thing. But you mentioned Altamise Barnes. I know Dorothy Jenkins Fields was critical to the Black Archives here in Miami. We recently, unfortunately, are witnessing the firing of the first Black woman Librarian of Congress. I guess my question in the midst of that is, why is it important for Black women to be in these positions around preservation of history, archival spaces? Is there a unique perspective that Black women bring to that kind of work that we should really kind of uplift and shine a spotlight on?
Sure. I'm a little biased. I think in this field, whether we're talking librarianship or preservation, it is heavily female. And Black women, just through history, have done so much to keep. We are often kind of these keepers of memory, of material culture for our community. So I definitely think that there's something there. For Dr. Carla Hayden, which you mentioned, very disappointing news today that she has been summarily removed from her position as the Librarian of Congress for no reason, no justifiable reason. This is someone who is highly credentialed, had been doing an incredible job in that position. Again, on the one hand, very disappointing, but not surprising given this administration and how they've been moving and their perceptions of race. For them, she's a DEI hire and needed to be gotten rid of. But again, I am reminded of just so much history in terms of Black women and the role that we played in preservation. Currently in our gallery, we have an exhibition on the centennial of the Harlem Renaissance. And we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the publication of The New Negro, edited by Elaine Locke, as well as the graphic edition of Survey Magazine, which was dedicated to the Harlem Renaissance. It was published in March of 2025. We would not have those editions and so many others if it was not for the vision of Dorothy Porter Wesley. We have her book collection, a personal book collection here as a part of our archives. It includes over 3,000 books, many of them rare editions, some of them signed. But Dorothy Porter Wesley and her 43-year career at Howard University as its librarian and the organizer of the Moreland Springard Research Center, one of the preeminent research institutions nationally for Black life and culture, what she was able to do with her determination, not only to amass, but also to organize this collection of this information. People have said about her, called her the mother, the midwife of the Black Studies movement. Wouldn't be able to have Black Studies if you didn't have the raw material to interrogate in order to make sense of the past. And so it's folks like her, and I want to just say a little more about her so people get it, because when we talk about organizing material, she had to do battle with the Dewey Decimal System, which we all know. But how many people know that there was racism baked into the organizational structure of the Dewey Decimal System. There were only two categories that were intended to speak to Black life and culture. You had 325, which was for colonialization, and then you had 326 that was for slavery and emancipation. Dorothy Porter Wesley is trying to organize like 180,000 items into these two categories. She couldn't do it. So she innovated and came up with a system that actually did justice to the breadth and depth of Black history. And she was chastised for it. They threatened to take her credentials because she was going against the grain. But she did that work anyway, and she was able to share it with an entire generation of Black librarians who were also in a similar situation. So yeah, whether we're talking about Dorothy Porter Wesley or Carla Hayden, we have Black women who have been at the forefront of promoting not only historic preservation, but intellectual freedom. But it's all going by the wayside. The question becomes, where is the new place? How can we protect what we can? I mean, I think there is some energy to be put into that. The march that I talked about, led by Asala and the African American Policy Forum, physically standing for NAMAC is necessary. It's going to be necessary for so many other institutions. But the other side of that coin is, what are we able to do for ourselves? That places that we control, and we can say, no matter what you want to do, whether you like it or not, whether you fund it or not, we are going to be able to preserve our collective memory in these places. I think that these are the things that are worthy of discussion. Actually, they already exist. I talked about this network of Black museums, the Black archives down in South Florida. Arlick is here in its county. I'm grateful for Broward County and its commissioners and the way that they voted to protect intellectual freedom and continue to invest in a library system. So I consider myself very lucky to be here. But we have the Spady Museum in Delray, the Old Dillard Museum, which is attached to Broward County school system. There's all of these institutions with various types of structures that individually we have to find out, but we need community. We need the community to rally and show up and to invest and to utilize the resources that we offer. If you say that these things upset you because you believe in Black history, how are you actually exercising and demonstrating your love of Black history? Are you visiting these places? Are you taking your children? Are you taking your family? Are you members and making a fiscal investment in making sure that these places survive? If you want them to, these are the types of conversations and questions that we need to be having with one another.
Here. Like, listen, co-signing on everything you just said. So we're winding down. Two really essential questions for me. I'm going to preview one so you can kind of tee it up, which is, unfortunately, we have a lot of folks who look like you and I who don't know our own history, right? Sad but true. So would love for you to think about 5 book recommendations. I know there's a plethora you could think of, but think of it from a starter standpoint for somebody who's just like, I'm Black identified, but haven't got there yet. I want you to think about that, jot it down. The question, though, that I want to ask in this moment is, there's been, I wouldn't really call it controversy, but some discussion around Black intellectuals going into these, manosphere, red pill podcast spaces. More recently, Mark Lamont Hill, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill has been a pretty consistent part of the Joe Budden podcast, trying to bring some intellectualism to a space that is kind of just living. So one of the think pieces that I was reading was him trying to dismantle flat eartherism, because one of the people on the podcast is a true believer in flat eartherism. And here you have a well-known scholar having to explain to this person why he's wrong. So I guess my question in the midst of that is, do you see a value in Black intellectuals interceding in these spaces? Or one of the, I guess, the counter arguments to that was, it feels as though subject matter experts are now having to share space with people who saw something on YouTube or picked up something on social media and are being viewed as kind of like co-equal. So on one hand, it's like Black intellectualism trying to intercede in a space that is oftentimes not that anti-intellectual. On the flip side of that argument, now you put all these years in doing research and writing dissertations, and now somebody's just got this wildly inappropriate opinion, and you're thrust into a space with that. Where do you kind of fall on that debate, if you want to call it that?
Oh, Senator Bullard. Oh, I mean, where I would like to start with this, right, is, again, I said it at the top of our conversation, who wants to live in a world without expertise? And I'll just put myself in the mix. I mean, I spent 3.5 years undergraduate, another 7 years getting my master's and PhD to earn this training, put through trial by fire, right? The reading that I've had to do, the writing that I've had to do and refine. Published that dissertation, have won awards from other, that, you know, that my work was evaluated by other scholars who said that this is good and true. But on the other hand, you have people who have access to Wikipedia and TikTok, and they are now competing in the same space. And what I think the bigger part of it is, I mean, you have to really appreciate the power of social media, that it really has, for a lot of people, put me on the same level with some of these other folks. Like, I really have to contend with this. I mean, I have my children. I will never forget. I had the occasion to invite Consciously, who is an influencer, to the campus where I was working, and he posted a live with me. And my youngest child sees me every day, knows what I do, but saw me with Consciously and had his mind blown and was like, "Wow, Mom," because he's really smart. You know, just stuff. And I'm just like, what? Like, you know, and in all respect, I mean, I think Consciously is one of the people that is very thoughtful and does his homework. And so there is a role for that. In the same way that I said at one point in this conversation that I got into museums because of its accessibility, I have to also respect the power of social media and its ability to reach. What is critical, though, and what's missing from this, kind of going back to the Flat Earthers, is critical thinking. And those skills that are clearly leaving us because we have, there's part of me who is just like flabbergasted that we actually have to deal with these conversations. Like, is this really life right now? There's so much that is there. So yeah, it's just really, it blows my mind that we're even here. But I say, when I talk about the crisis that we're in, everything that you just laid out is an indicator of the problems that we have and what we have to combat. Like, we have to bring critical thinking and reading back into fashion so that we can really deal with fact, that we can begin to call out wrong thinking, misinformation, all of the things that people do to try to manipulate public opinion, to make sure that we're clear about what's going on around us, number one, but number two, what we want to do about it. I mean, what I really want to say to you, Dwight, I can't call it. Like, I don't know where I am right now.
It is definitely a bizarre world.
Yeah. Well, and you need to, I'm gonna put it back on you. You need to get the bros together, because I think, not that Black women are perfect, But a lot of the red pill stuff is like really sideways. And you gave the flat Earth example, but mansplaining what women need to be doing. Everything from the need for us to be submissive. It's a whole ball of wax, and it's a bunch of toxicity that unfortunately is really eroding the ability of us as a community to come together and do the very basic thing of making sure that our community survives. So again, that's another kind of critical angle on this stuff. Why is this getting so much? Where is it rising from? For I think a lot of Black men, what are you experiencing in this culture that makes you feel so threatened? That is really forcing you to dig in and taking such strong opinions, and it's a condensation, frankly, of what's happening in a majority culture. When you look at the politics of today, and so much of this agenda items, and when all at the core of 2025 is the idea that we want to stop women, that we want to really make sure that the patriarchy stays fully entrenched, that we pendulate back towards a time when men were more in control and had control of women. Women need to be doing things like having babies and not going to college. Black men are just as susceptible to those messages as any men. But the trick is for us to, again, think, can we think, can we have a different kind of conversation? Can we explore our own history, know how our history and experience is different, know that the keys to our survival will be different, and be about that work.
Here. Well, Politics for the Culture is trying to, in our own way, combat some of the manosphere stuff. I show up with a full beard and invite amazing folks like yourself to the space to try and, in some way, shape, or form, combat some of the ill that's out there. But with that being said, we were about to hear this top five. For the culture.
I got you. I got some off the dome. And it's this is not, because you put me on the spot right now, this is not a comprehensive list. These are just things that I am absorbing in my spirit and think people should share. Probably top of the list right now in this moment is a book called We Refuse, that was written by historian Kelly Carter Jackson. It is a book for the moment. She was a great read. She goes through Black history and presents these different modes of refusal that our ancestors have used to survive. All of this treacherous history that you and I know has been a part of the Black experience here in the United States. She talks about flight. She talks about revolt. Item by item, she goes through this. She concludes with a chapter called Joy. And I think people are becoming clearer that our joy, whether it's through music or fashion or even on the trail ride and finding what the fans are, is all about us surviving. It's something that we have demonstrated time and time again. So I know for me, in this moment, that book, and especially powerful, was her epilogue that was called Let Them Drown. I'm eager to form some type of that's actually, Dwight, we need to get together. You need to read the book. Let me know when you finish it. I'd love to chop it up with you about that, especially her conclusion. So that is our We Refuse by Kelly Carter Jackson. A favorite for me here in the state of Florida is Emancipation Betrayed by Paul Ortiz. He used to be at the University of Florida. Very powerful history, takes us out of emancipation and going into Reconstruction and watching the fall of Reconstruction. There's so many important lessons about our state's history. And also, as we deal with this contentious experience in modern day America, of which are we going to be in favor of progress and inclusion, or are we going to collapse again towards white supremacy? Revisiting Reconstruction is something that I highly recommend. And so Dr. Ortiz's treatment of that period, I definitely recommend. if you need kind of a kind of a humorous primer on the Black experience, I'm going to recommend Black AF History by Michael Harriot, who will not only inspire you but make your side split. I love his humor and his approach. So that is definitely one on the list. Top of my mind also is Combi, written by Etta Fields Black. We were able to host her here just a few weeks ago for one of our cultural conversations. She's a native of South Florida. She is the daughter of the Dorothy Jenkins Field, who is the founder of the Black Archives and Preservation. She helped to preserve the Historic Lyric Theater in Overtown. But her daughter wrote this amazing book, Combi, which has just been announced in the last week as a winner of the Pulitzer Prize for this year. So definitely something you got to get your hands on. It's all about Harriet Tubman and her service as a military commander during the Combahee River Raid during the U.S. Civil War. And it's because of the research of Dr. Fields Black that we, there hopefully at some point, there definitely has been a legal opinion she shared with us that Harriet Tubman was indeed a military leader and deserves some type of medal or recognition for what she does. During this journey, she was able to free, I think it was over 700 enslaved people and bring them to freedom. So tremendous, tremendous story. A name we know well in Harriet Tubman, but the research of Dr. Fields Black has added documentation that many Civil War historians have ignored. And so you can't underestimate the impact of that book. And now it's been crowned with the Pulitzer Prize. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, the last one, selfish plug, is Democracy Abroad, Lynching at Home. That is my book. Published in 2015 by the University Press of Florida. I take up the subject of lynching in the 1940s here in the state. That book has received the Florida Book Award. And as well as the Harry and Harriet T. Moore Award from the Florida Historical Society. So yeah, check me out.
100%. And make sure you go visit the ARLIC. I want to thank you, Dr. Hobbs, for enlightening conversation. You know, you are my interview plug on so many occasions, but thank you for coming on this platform as well to kind of share your expertise.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for everything that you do, always.
Happy to do it. Once again, this Politics for the Culture. See you on the next episode.